Hello, my name is Sven P. In this video I'll show you how I made this Stormglass Cathedral. This video is sponsored by G-Portal. Get 5% off your Conan Exiles servers by clicking the link in the description. With the new expansion comes a new map and 2 new building sets. I'm gonna talk more about the expansion in a little bit, but first I would like to explain a couple of things about the build, in case you guys are considering recreating it yourself. And at the end of the video, I'm gonna go through all the dimensions of the walls, the height of things, the length of things, so that it will be a lot easier for you to recreate, because I know it's a little difficult to watch a speed build and count at the same time. The type of structure that I'm using in this video is the tier 3 structure. It is called Stormglass. Almost only Stormglass was used in this video, and the building pieces that I used can be seen on the screen right now. The ground foundation that I made was a square, and the length of its sides was 18 times 37. On the longest part of the square, you will have 7 pillars with 5 blocks in between them. If you do the math, you can see that 5 times 6 plus 7, 7 being the amount of pillars, 6 being the amount of walls that are 5 blocks long. That all adds up to 37. I like when geometry adds up this way when making a build. It makes it very balanced to look at. Of course, the build is much bigger than this because I added a lot of things later, but as a starting reference, think about 18 times 37 for a square. It is worth mentioning that with official settings, it's a very bad idea to build in this location because of the maelstrom. I have turned that off in my game, which you can do by going into settings. The maelstrom is a mechanic that seems very similar to the purge. I haven't looked too much into it yet, but the maelstrom surrounds the tower and seems to cover the open parts of the map towards the middle. It looks to me like the Maelstrom mechanic has PvP in mind. I think most action on the Isle of Siptah is going to take place in the center around the tower, and to prevent big alpha tribes from dominating too much or griefing, their structures here will be in danger from the Maelstrom. Of course, this is just my first impression from just looking at this, so I'm just guessing. I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to make content on Isle of Siptah before it was released to the public, and this is the first video that I'm making on it. I took a quick look around the whole map, which is very beautiful by the way, before I started to build this, just so that I could get a small impression of what the map was all about. Feel free to also take a look at my other Isle of Siptah videos that I probably just published. I've been very hard at work this week right before the expansion releases. Which reminds me, if you enjoyed this content, why don't you subscribe and leave a comment, you know? It would be really appreciated. I'm hoping that we can reach 200,000 subscribers this year. That would be really awesome. Anyways, Isle of Siptah is a map that is inspired by an old Conan novel called Gem in the Tower. I haven't read it myself, but there is supposedly a bat demon hanging out in the tower. Something that doesn't seem to be the case in this expansion actually. I've gone over to the tower, but there's no bats there. The tower, by the way, that I refer to is the tower that you can see in the thumbnail of this video. I'm just speculating, but I'm wondering if Funcom decided to put that bat in the Exiled Lands, and that bat is the one that resides in the Tower of Bats. Or maybe it's an entirely different bat. What is interesting though is that it always seemed to be a dungeon or something that wasn't yet implemented into the game behind the white bat demon. As of right now, in my little preview of Isle of Siptah, that gate behind the bat demon is not open. I've gone there to test. I wonder if Funcom will open it when the expansion is released. But that could also be something that they're adding at a later time. Anyways, when you're watching this video, we'll probably already know. The Isle of Siptah seems like a super interesting place, filled with very intriguing lore. When starting a new game and choosing the map Isle of Siptah, there is a cutscene showing an alternative to being crucified and saved by Mr. Chad. In this cutscene, you're on a boat that's getting destroyed by a storm, and you start out on a shipwreck on the shores of the Isle of Siptah. Siptah has something called vaults. These are dungeons, and you can find 14 of them across the map. I haven't really tried any of them yet, but I've gone to just take a quick look at them. Primarily to look at the architecture, because I was curious who made them. I don't think it's the Giant Kings, even though there is a Giant King city in the Isles. Both the building blocks that I'm building with right now and the vaults looks quite a bit like the ruins in the jungle where the Witch Queen resides. As far as I know, those ruins were not built by Lemurians, but I don't know. I'm not super expert at Conan lore. I always thought the Lemurians just arrived there in the Exiled Lands and found them and just hung out there. Not that they actually built those things. Either way, the ruins in the jungle looks a lot like the vaults. So I'm suspecting that they're built by the same people, which I'm guessing is not humans and also not Giant Kings. I think it's a high chance that it could be Serpent Men, because the lore stones in the game, I think, are voiced by Serpent Men. It also looks like the Stormglass building set, Stormglass being what I'm building with right now. I think because of the timeline that it's unlikely that it's made by the wizard Siptah, being the one that makes the Maelstrom. I can't say for sure though, because I haven't looked that much into this. I will be super eager to learn more about the lore in this new expansion though, and my guess is that the walls were made by perhaps an ancient race that has been extinct. For a different video I'm going to go through all the lore stones on the map. The lore stones aren't exactly like the ones on the Exiled lands. These are like green crystal things, and when you click on them it shows a cutscene, and they're scattered all across the map. So I'm getting a little bit carried away here with all the lore and who made what and what made who and stuff like that. But I think this kind of stuff could be a really interesting topic to be talking about for speed build videos. I find it a little bit boring to just watch like half an hour of building something with epic music, but you know, no talking or anything. I don't usually watch through the whole video on videos like that. So I kind of want to try out this kind of a format when making videos, putting my thoughts behind it, talking about some game lore, and maybe some real life manifestation of the build that I'm doing. In this case that being a cathedral, which brings me over to the next topic, being cathedrals. Cathedrals is the most glorious looking of Christian churches, built to impress, like a castle, wanting your eyes to ascend towards heaven. Every man is a sinner, but as you enter the cathedral you can remember God, feel His presence and leave your sins behind. There are a couple of real-life buildings that somewhat resemble my cathedral, most notably the Notre Dame in France. That was definitely a building that I thought of when building this, especially when thinking about the two large towers that I had in front of the cathedral. Last year, Notre Dame, which is about 800 years old, was very damaged in a fire. It is still standing, but a lot of very expensive repairs is going to have to be made. People have donated hundreds of millions of dollars to restore it. Luckily no one died in the fire, but 3 people were wounded. Another real-life building that is very comparable to this, I think, is Hogwarts from Harry Potter, and yes, Hogwarts is real. If you look at the east side of Hogwarts, you can see 2 giant towers, and how they can resemble both this build and the Notre Dame. I built Hogwarts twice in other games, by the way. That was in Ark Survival Evolved and your favorite game, Fortnite Creative. I have not built it in Conan Exiles though. The religion in Conan Exiles that most resembles Christianity, I would argue, is Mitra worship. The description when creating your character says, Mitra is the chief god of the Hyborians, a stern yet benevolent god who requires no living sacrifices. Mitra worshippers are expected to lead a virtuous life and follow the principles of truthfulness, honor, and trustworthiness. People who choose Mitra wish to represent truth and virtue in the world, while crushing those who dare to worship other gods. Mitra is the sun god, like Jesus, while Set in Christianity is like Satan, a liar, a sneaky creature. Set is said to be the enemy of Mitra, and the religion of Mitra encourages forceful conversion, smiting the heretics that dare worship other gods. This is very unlike other religions in the Conan universe, where belief and worship of other gods are accepted. Mitra will have no such thing. The theology behind the worship of Mitra was based on justice and a very strong sense of right and wrong. The followers of Mitra strive for justice and were encouraged to forgive. Mitra is the gentle god, in contrast to northern warrior gods such as Crom, Bari, Ymir, etc., and supposedly teaches mercy over vengeance. However, despite this, Mitra does banish people to a hell dimension for punishment, for as mankind's eternal judge, Mitra decides the final assignment of souls to either there or a heaven world as a reward based on their deeds on this world. Blood sacrifice was explicitly excluded from the Mitraistic religion. Instead, rituals have much simplicity, dignity, and beauty. In contrast to the case of the idols of non-Mitristic religions, the statues of Mitra serve only as emblems intended to represent the god in idealized form and not to be worshipped themselves. This is why followers of Mitra never built grand cathedrals like in Christianity, because one can easily, or maybe even more easily, worship Mitra if you have nothing. This could be why the Mitra worshippers in the exiled lands expressed more acceptance of their banishment and loss of their former life than the other exiles. There is a huge clergy associated with the worship of Mitra, and one could find temples in his honor almost everywhere that his influence had spread. His priesthood is very strict, celibacy and abstaining from any mind-altering products is a must. Priests of Mithra are very educated, being the keepers of ancient lore and wisdom. Mithra's temples were free of ornamentations, as they were supposed to reflect a pious and ascetic ideal. Consequently, the worship of Mithra does not require precious metals and elaborate ornamentation to honor his patronage. Rather, his worship requires dedication and prayer, not superfluous sacrifice. And it was said that Mithra abhors the ritual of human sacrifice, prevalent in many other Hyborian religions. Like a cathedral, this build feels very gothic. I love the combination of gold and black. The window pieces are amazing looking, and the detailed roof pieces looks a lot better than the roof pieces that are basically straight line 45-degree angles, which a lot of the older building pieces were. All the pieces are very detailed looking, making it very easy to make your build look great, even without spending too much time making interiors. I did add a bunch of statues towards the end, and a lot of lighting, so that I will be able to make the build a little bit extra glorious. But I didn't feel like I had to spend 5 million gazillion years in order to make the inside look tolerable. Arc! With the roof pieces, I added some extra detail to the exterior by making shapes pointing up towards heaven. These gave a little bit more of a Viking feel somehow, although not so much that it ruined the cathedral Gothic aesthetic, but enough to make the build very interesting, I thought. All in all, I'm very pleased with this design, and do leave a comment about what you think about it. And if you have some suggestions for a future build, I'd be interested in hearing that. I do read all comments, and I try to respond to your feedback. An easier place to reach me will be on Discord. Feel free to join our Discord channel. The link to it will be in the description of this video. If you have some Conan builds or any other builds that you want to share there, feel free. We'd all love to see that. The Stormglass building set easily is one of my favorite building sets in Conan Exiles. I've not tried the tier 2 Flotsam that also came with this expansion yet, but what I would like to say about what I've seen of it so far is that I really like the alternative wooden wall. I felt like the insulated wooden wall, which was the only really wooden wall that we had, was a little bit lacking, primarily because when building huge walls, it looked like there was a bunch of squares put on top of each other. And for building things like a cozy hut, the insulated wood just looks way too refined. Flotsam both looks like it would be looking a little more seamless when putting a lot of things on top of each other, and also looks like it's a little bit rougher, hence making it fitting for a lot more interesting builds than insulated wood, I think. Again, I like how the Flotsam roofs are not 45 degrees straight lines. They're sloped in a very interesting way, making it easy to make builds that both look natural and fit in the world. With a lot of the previous building sets, there was a sense that when you make a base, it doesn't really belong in the game. Ideally, a player-made build should be able to look like an in-game structure. I know this is a little unrealistic, but it's really cool when it's possible to do that. With Stormglass and Flotsam, I think that's gonna be a lot easier than a lot of the old ones. So this is my Stormglass Cathedral. The speed build part of this video is on. And now I'm gonna showcase it to you. After the showcase, I'm gonna go through a little bit thoroughly and just count things for you in case you want to build this yourself, so that there will be no doubt about the dimensionalities. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. And one more thing, it's good to be back. as promised, I'm gonna go through some of the dimensions of things here and the lengths of things. First, some of the somewhat self-explanatory ones. This one here, starting from this line here, everything will start from this line that I explained the height of. This to all the way up to here would be 20 blocks. This here would be the 20th. And the top of the roof here would be 21. And then this top would be 23. So this top here would be 22. That's not stuff that's super important, but I'm gonna go over it anyways. These here are on number 16. And these here, also the 16th block, that is the tops. This one here will be 15, and this one being one lower, so 15. Making the top of the roof here number 12, also not important. Let's go on to something that's actually important. Because when you build this, what you're gonna think about first, the initial square being 18 times 37. Then I'd like to point out that on this side right here, this being the short 18 side, this block here will be one block in, so this will be like on the number 36th, and this one here being on the number 37. And I just want to point that out in order to not cause confusion. When you're building this, when you build upwards here, you want to think about this wall here and how it's from the bottom here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 2 roofs, and then 1, 2, 3, 2 roofs again, 1, 2, 3, and then all the way up to the middle. You don't have to count to 5 here, but it is 5. It will add itself up because you're gonna be able to find the middle here. What is important to note here is that these pillars here is one block out from this wall here, so it sticks out a little bit this direction, and the same here, but not here. And the reason why is because I just wanted it to be closer to the middle, because if it was one block further out, it would look weird. It would be just right next to this thing, and it just looks a lot better this way, but it does make it a little bit more complicated. Another thing that's I don't think is very straightforward is where do these towers start, because you can see here that they're kind of like on the corner here. It starts on the corner. So I'm gonna illustrate this with these foundations here. Think about this, what I'm doing right here, being the number 37 wall. So this area is 37 blocks long, right? And then this one this way is the one that's 18. So what you have here is the corner, and I'm gonna build the same corner here as I had over there. So you see how this is the same corner here, right? This block and this block is the same as these blocks and these blocks. So here you have the pillars. You know how they have 5 blocks in between them, so it will be the next pillar here, and then it would go out 3 blocks here before the next pillar start, and then the next pillar here would start here. Then these would go up 10 blocks from the bottom. These ones here would go up, was it 16, I think? Doesn't really matter. But the towers, the big square towers in the front there, this one and this one, this will be one of those corners. And it will be 6 blocks long, 4, 5, 6, so 4 in between. The wall in between would start here, and then it's the same this way, 1, 2, 3, 4 in between, and wall in between going like this. To create the other tower, you can either mirror this, then you'd just have this thing, this wall go this direction, and then going this way here being the one that's 18 long, and this one here being 37. And it sticks out a little bit here, and then the tower goes like this. That's easy, or you can count in between there, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which would mean that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the next tower would start. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the corner pillar would be here. So that will be how to get the placement right there. It's quite easy actually. Anyways, that's that. Now I'm gonna blow the habadabadum out of this build. 200k. 2020. that note, thank you very much for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day. Don't do this at home.